Across the planet, there are roads that feel less like transportation routes and more like tests of human courage. These tracks twist across cliffs, cut through deep canyons, and disappear into landscapes so wild that a single mistake can mean the end of the journey. From frozen northern valleys and volcanic terrains to endless deserts and towering Himalayan passes, drivers face mud, rock, ice, and dust in some of the most extreme environments on the planet. Many of these roads were once built for exploration, survival, or remote communities. Yet today, they remain among the most dangerous routes a traveler can attempt. This is a journey across the world's most dangerous roads, where the line between adventure and risk becomes thinner with every turn. Old Telegraph Track, Australia. Running along the spine of the Cape York Peninsula, the Old Telegraph Track is a legendary off-road sanctuary leading to the meeting point of two oceans at the northernmost tip of Australia. The route traps travelers with deep holes, hidden under layers of fine dust up to 3 feet thick, ready to crush the suspension of the most arrogant machines. Once a telegraph lifeline in the 1880s, this site still preserves resilient iron poles from the 19th century, despite devastating desert fires and termites. After being officially abandoned in the 1960s, the path became a grand open architecture where nature freely invades and erases human traces. The most breathtaking challenge is the near 90-degree steep creek banks, forcing vehicles to nosedive straight into the water at a dramatic angle. In the territory of fierce saltwater crocodiles, the ultimate survival rule is to never step into the water unless you want to become a meal for death. Road to Omalo, Georgia. Road to Omalo is not just a mountain track, but the only gateway between the modern world and a high plateau where time seems almost frozen. The route stretches about 45 miles as a rough, unpaved strip with no guardrails, clinging to mountain slopes, above drops, of thousands of feet. Each year, snow can reach up to 30 feet thick, sealing the road from November to late May and cutting off all access. The journey shifts suddenly from dark, wet conifer forests through dense clouds to bright alpine meadows under open sky. Near the end, medieval black stone watchtowers rise from sharp rock outcrops like giant fingers over the deep valley. Because of ancient religious rules preserved by isolation, carrying pork through this road into the plateau is strictly forbidden and seen as a serious offense. Hell's Revenge, USA. Not for dreamers, the cruel stone arena, named Hell's Revenge, is the most dangerous and iconic off-road trail on the planet. Geological forces have bent ancient sandstone into narrow and steep dragonbacks, creating a rugged and challenging stone labyrinth. Under the scorching heat, surface temperatures soar to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to melt plastic parts on even the toughest mechanical machines. Across the glowing red rock are tangled, black, burnt rubber streaks, the remains of a heritage map of humanity's endless conquest. With slopes tilting up to 70% and abysses 100 feet deep right at the tire's edge, travelers will only see the sky before their hearts are squeezed. Conquering this place is not just about driving skills, but a battle against survival instincts as the brain screams to stop before the deep chasm. Mustang Valley, Nepal, where time is frozen amidst the deepest canyons on the planet. Mustang Valley is a journey to touch the soul of the last forbidden kingdom in the Himalayas. Despite being located among the highest peaks in the world, this land is a dry, high-altitude desert because two giants block all moisture from the monsoon. The route runs along the deepest canyon in the world, squeezed between two snow-peaked mountains over 26,000 feet high. Instead of asphalt, you will face dry riverbeds and the mountain passes over 12,467 feet high, where oxygen deficiency chokes both breath and engines. Once an ancient Silk Road, this place was the only lifeline connecting salt from Tibetan lakes with rice from India for many centuries. To reach this expensive land, travelers must pay a permit fee of $500 for only 10 days to witness the most primitive beauty remaining. Skeleton Coast 4x4 Trails, Namibia. Dubbed the Gates of Hell, where a 55-million-year-old desert swallows the ocean, the Skeleton Coast is one of the wildest and most dangerous lands on the planet. With dense fog covering the area for 180 days every year, this place becomes a death trap where the chance of survival for those stranded is nearly zero. More than 1,000 rusted shipwrecks lying on the sand turn this coast into a massive graveyard, preserving the ruins of ghost towns from the diamond fever of the last century. The sight of bright yellow sand dunes rising 984 feet high and plunging straight into the grey waters of the Atlantic creates a haunting visual shock for any driver. Along the journey lie whale skeletons dozens of feet long and bleached seal carcasses, creating a ghostly atmosphere in the land that God made in anger. To avoid being swallowed by quicksand, you must lower tire pressure to 12 psi, an ultimate survival technique when facing the brutality of nature. Sach Pass, India, is not a relaxed scenic stop, but a survival-level driving test for anyone who chooses to take the wheel. It sits at about 14,500 feet in Himachal Pradesh, like a thin lifeline linking isolated valleys to the outside world. The track is considered among the most dangerous because it is a narrow dirt road filled with loose rocks, cut along steep cliffs with little to no guardrails. Heavy snow usually limits access to roughly June through October, and outside that window, the pass is effectively closed. Driving here can feel like moving through an open-roof corridor, with snow walls higher than a truck on one side and a dark rock face on the other, while the river below looks like a thread. On a single-lane section, meeting an oncoming vehicle may force a careful reverse near the edge, so every move has to be precise. Shimshell Valley Road, Pakistan. One slip of a tire on Shimshell Valley Road can erase any chance of turning back, because here there is no such thing as a shoulder or a second chance. The route is only about 35 miles long, yet loose gravel and narrow width can make that short distance feel endless. It follows the edge of a collapsed gorge where the rock can plunge more than 6,500 feet, leaving no room to correct a mistake. With no heavy machinery, local residents carved this lifeline by hand using crowbars and homemade explosives over 18 years, from 1985 to 2003. In earlier times, the inner valley was treated as a place of exile, since being sent here meant isolation with almost no escape. After hours of harsh, grey terrain that feels like a dead planet, the road suddenly opens into a bright green oasis before heavy snow seals it off for about 7 to 8 months each year. Immersive Pass, USA. Reaching straight into the clouds at an altitude of 13,114 feet, Immersive Pass is not just a road, but a life and death sky ladder, connecting the ground to the stratosphere of North America. Born from the gold rush of the 1880s, this landmark bears the name of a woman, Imogen Richardson, creating a paradoxical romance hidden behind the mountain's brutality. Viewed from above, the fragile path is like a thread knotted continuously across the cliff, defying every law of balance and human safety. With a width barely fitting a single vehicle, travelers are forced to face an abyss thousands of feet deep, right at the tire's edge, without any guardrails. Endless steep slopes can turn brake discs red hot and burn out the transmission system if the driver is negligent in using engine braking. Upon reaching the peak, your vehicle becomes the highest point for many miles, turning it into a perfect target for lightning from sudden storms. Speedy Valley, India, is a dusty road world where the line between survival and emptiness feels thinner than you expect. The route sits at an average altitude above 12,500 feet, where oxygen drops to about 60% of sea level, and both people and engines fatigue faster. In winter, temperatures can fall to about -30 degrees Celsius, or about -22 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing water and even thickening fuel inside vehicles. In places, the eroded mountains look like a lunar surface, while a bright turquoise river winds through a wide bed of pale gravel, creating a sharp contrast with the dry slopes. The drive is also known for Malang meltwater streams crossing the track, and with only one fuel stop across hundreds of miles, running out of gas can mean being stranded in total isolation. Mount Pinatubo Lahar Trails, Philippines. Forged from 10 billion tons of volcanic matter, Mount Pinatubo Lahar Trails is a deadly scar born from the brutal wrath of nature. This completely grey route is constantly erased and reshaped by millions of tons of shifting ash after every stormy season. Hidden deep beneath the barren ash that your tires crush lies the corpses of countless towns buried alive in their sleep. Blinding sandstorms carrying microscopic glass shards are ready to swallow visibility and crush vehicle engines in the blink of an eye. Travelers are extremely tortured, having to plunge their vehicles through fierce streams 40 to 60 times with the surrounding risk of stalling. At the finish line, the deadly crater will deceive your eyes with a brilliantly surreal and silent jade green lake. Abano Pass, Georgia. Life and death are sometimes separated by exactly one wheel turn on this wild route, perched at an altitude of 9,350 to 9,514 feet amidst the majestic Caucasus Mountains. This cruel 43-mile stretch carries the title of a national highway but possesses an absolute zero in infrastructure. No asphalt, no warning lights, and absolutely no barriers separating the wheels from the abyss. It was not until the 1970s that this route was expanded, using explosives to shatter the cliffs, marking a mere half-century since this isolated land was mechanically connected to the outside world. A chilling sensation will surround you along the way through simple shrines and metal plaques, marking the exact spots where drivers have permanently plunged to the bottom of the cliff. These tragic deaths have created an unwritten rule. Drivers passing by here proactively stop to pour a glass of strong wine onto the cold ground to comfort the perished souls and pray for peace. It is highly ironic that the name Abano, which means bathhouse, stemming from the steaming hot springs at the foot of the pass, is used for this highway of death with its bone-chilling cold at the summit. Streletki Track, Australia. is a true sand furnace where red desert dust can erase the horizon and blur the line between sky and ground. The route stretches about 295 miles across the arid interior of South Australia and Queensland, demanding careful planning for fuel and time. It cuts through long, parallel red sand dunes, often described as the longest system of its kind, creating a constant wave-like terrain. The track is tied to the story of Harry Redford, who drove about 1,000 stolen cattle through this harsh country in 1870 and escaped. Razor-sharp gibberstones can shred tires, so at least 2 spares are a survival rule, and many drivers hold roughly 50 to 60 miles per hour to skim over the corrugated surface, a technique that carries real risk. And Beetle Highway, Australia. Do not let the word highway fool you, because Ann Beetle Highway is really a remote track about 820 miles long for people who want to disappear from the modern world. It cuts across the Great Victoria Desert and crosses more than 200 parallel red sand dunes, creating constant corrugation and difficult navigation. Explorer Len Beadle built the route and named it after his wife Anne, a rare personal story in a harsh landscape. It was developed in the 1950s to support British nuclear weapons testing activities in the Australian desert. Because the surface is so rough, average speed is often only 10 to 15 miles per hour, so carrying at least 53 gallons of fuel and 26 gallons of water becomes basic survival planning. Pangi Valley Cliff Road, India. Like a chilling slash carved into the side of the Great Himalayas, the cliffhanger is a brutal challenge that forces even the bravest drivers to pray silently before starting their engines. Perched at an altitude of 8,200 feet, the crumbly, shale roadbed is always ready to collapse and drag the machine down into a 2,000-foot deep abyss without guardrails. The roadway, measuring a mere 8 feet wide, was blasted directly into the vertical cliff using explosives, creating a giant rock canopy hanging right over the vehicle roof. Facing countless blind hairpin turns, even drivers with nerves of steel only dare to inch forward at a speed of 5 miles per hour. Throughout tens of miles, entirely devoid of concrete, the thin line between life and death is just a mist obscuring the roaring river below. Baboon's Pass, Lesotho, is a short mountain track that can turn into the ultimate limit test for both driver and machine. The pass sits above 8,500 feet, where thin air can reduce engine power by about 20 to 30%, and every climb feels heavier. Its surface is made of hard, sharp basalt, formed by volcanic activity millions of years ago, capable of tearing tires and grinding undercarriages. The name comes from a local belief that only baboons are agile enough to cross these steep rock steps with ease. One side drops into deep valleys, often filled with moving clouds, while the other rises as a near vertical wall, making the road appear suspended in the sky. Even though it is only 16 miles long, a four-wheel drive convoy can take 15 to 20 hours to complete it, with broken axles, shredded tires, and damaged gearboxes recorded every season. White Rim Road, USA, is a 100-mile loop that clings to red cliffs like a sharp white chalk line, pulling you into isolation where turning back is rarely easy. The route runs on a narrow bench between a cliff wall about 1,000 feet above and a canyon dropping another 1,000 feet below. It was not built for tourism, because in the 1950s it was expanded for uranium-hauled trucks tied to Cold War nuclear weapons work. Today, it is a prized challenge for off-road drivers and mountain bikers, and access often requires permits booked well in advance. Far below, lonely rock towers and pillars stand like guards of an ancient abandoned world, emphasizing the scale and dryness of the landscape. The core survival rule is at least 1 gallon of water per person per day, because running out here can quickly become life-threatening. Poison Spider Mesa, USA. Far beyond an ordinary landmark, Poison Spider Mesa is a towering sandstone fortress where the professional off-road world considers its conquest a harsh rite of passage. Molded from the Jurassic period, this entire land is a grand graveyard of time, with million-year-old fossilized sand dunes lying right beneath the traveler's feet. Rising 1,000 feet above the valley floor, the sheer cliffs here cut directly into space, creating a surreal setting exactly like the surface of Mars. The haunting name of the Mesa stems from an ancient tragedy linked to the death of a young girl after a venomous spider bite in this forbidden zone. Nature has manually carved out an abandoned ancient citadel with a system of arches, stone columns, and intricate crevices full of traps. Conquering this place requires a cruel slowness instead of speed, because just 1 second of haste will immediately leave you stuck or overturned amidst the treacherous rock fissures. Glacia Route Network, Svalbard, Norway. Here you are not driving on land, but on the backs of giant glaciers that slowly slide toward the ocean a few feet each day. These ghost routes never stay the same because the ice beneath constantly shifts, turning every journey into travel over moving ground. Temperatures often fall to -22 degrees Fahrenheit, and smooth white snow can hide crevasses up to 130 feet deep that can swallow a vehicle in seconds. For 4 months, the region is locked in total polar darkness. Then for another 4 months, it endures endless bright sunlight that never sets. The white horizon can blend sky and ground into one blank field, destroying any sense of depth or direction. On both sides rise massive siraks, as tall as multi-story buildings ready to collapse, and the law requires anyone leaving settlements to carry a heavy rifle for protection in this extreme frozen land. Whipsaw Trail, Canada, is a terrain maze where a vehicle must constantly adapt between mud, loose rock, and narrow ridgelines deep in the Pacific Northwest backcountry. The route climbs to over 6,200 feet, where thinner air and fast-shifting weather can change conditions in minutes. The most feared sections are bogs made from decaying plant matter mixed with snowmelt, forming thick mud that can be 3 to 4 feet deep and swallow tires quickly. Higher up, the track follows tight mountain edges with full 360-degree views of the Cascade Range, where small mistakes feel unforgiving. There is little to no phone service along the trail, so communication relies on radios, and stepping out to check a winch can carry real risk in an area known for black bears and grizzlies. Cordillera Mountain Trails, Philippines. Perched on the backbone of the Philippines, the Cordillera Mountain Trails are a vertical labyrinth where clouds and land work hand in hand along every line. Originating as ancient headhunter trails, this rugged terrain once served as an impenetrable fortress for indigenous tribes against all foreign invasions.
Iniwasan na namin yung mga sementado at dito kami magsisimula sa...
This network is so complex that without a local guide, travelers would easily be trapped in deep valleys with no motorized exit. With a vertical cliff on one side and a 2,500-foot abyss without guardrails on the other, the river at the bottom appears as small as a thread.
Tumutulo na rin ang mga waterfall.
Amidst the dense fog, the car horn becomes the only language of survival to avoid deadly head-on collisions at blind curves.
Yung pag nandito, parang ang haba ng araw. Noong una, medyo natakot ako.
The masterpiece ending the journey is the 2,000-year-old green walls of rice terraces, carved entirely by the bare hands and primitive tools of ancestors. Gunbarrel Highway, Australia. is one of Australia's harshest off-road routes, known for giant washouts, sharp rocks, and corrugations that can shake a vehicle apart if focus slips. The track runs about 840 miles and cuts through 3 major deserts, creating long stretches of deep isolation. It was named Gunbarrel because the builders aimed for a line as straight as possible across the heart of the continent. The road was built by the legendary Gunbarrel Road construction party, just 7 people working from 1955 to 1958 with very basic equipment. Along the way, metal drop boxes let travelers leave spare parts or food for anyone in trouble, a rare support culture in the outback. To attempt it, you must carry fuel for at least 500 miles, drinking water for 10 days, and the ability to fix mechanical failures on your own. Scandinavian Mountain Gravel Road, Norway. This is a raw gravel road on steep Nordic cliffs, built for survival driving, not polished tourism. It is cut straight into ancient granite and gneiss, so the surface is hard, sharp, and unforgiving. Many sections exceed 12% grade, and long descents can overheat brakes if drivers rely on them too much. The route began in the early 20th century to support major hydropower work inside the mountains, not sightseeing. Some parts are under 10 feet wide and include a dark, wet tunnel where the road makes a 180-degree turn inside solid rock, and heavy snow closes it from October to June. Alexander McKenzie Heritage Trail, Canada. More than just a path, Alexander McKenzie Heritage Trail is a 280-mile time corridor connecting the heart of the continent to the vast ocean. In a single journey, travelers will be amazed by the sudden shift from arid subarctic plateaus to giant temperate rainforests. In 1793, explorer Alexander McKenzie conquered this route, achieving the feat of crossing North America by land 12 years before the famous Lewis and Clark expedition. Conquering this land is a harsh survival test, as you must manually build slippery log bridges over swamps and face absolute solitude for 2 weeks. BAM Road, Russia, is a true survival exam, where the idea of a road often exists only on paper, and every mile can turn into a risk. About 90% of the route lies on permafrost, and summer thaw can turn the surface into deep, unpredictable mud. Temperatures can swing from about 86 degrees Fahrenheit in summer down to about minus 76 degrees Fahrenheit in winter, which can break equipment if preparation is weak. The route crosses hundreds of rivers and streams, and meltwater can raise water levels by about 3 to 7 feet within hours, turning shallow crossings into deadly traps. Many sections still lack detailed geological maps, so each stretch is closer to exploration than normal driving. One well-known bridge runs more than 1,640 feet on a narrow wooden deck, and some days a professional convoy moves only about 12 to 19 miles while reinforcing bridges or waiting for rivers to drop, as isolation and shaking crossings wear down even tough drivers. Svalvogar Route 622, Iceland. Known as the Dream Road, this coastal route can quickly become a gravel and salt nightmare for inexperienced drivers. It is a place where vehicles must race the moon, because at high tide, the North Atlantic can rise about 10 feet and completely submerge parts of the road. The towering cliffs along the way are remnants of a supervolcano that went extinct about 13 million years ago, with layers of basalt and sediment stacked like a giant layered cake. Wind and waves constantly erode the base of the cliffs, making rockfalls common, and boulders the size of a refrigerator can drop from around 2,000 feet without warning. Remarkably, it was not built by government engineers, but carved out by a single local farmer using a rough bulldozer weighing about 8 tons. Over many years, the sea itself hollowed out the foot of the cliffs, forming a massive stone overhang above the road that makes drivers feel as if the mountain could collapse at any moment.